Okay, because everyone see the penalty and interest there?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. What in the world?
Morning, Judge. Looks like you're on twice.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Let me get off of one.
I fixed it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it happened to me too, Judge.
All right. Zach to the
Gremlins.
rescue, though, it seems to be.
Gremlins.
Hey, good morning. I see John and Scott, and of course, we've got Zach there in the background. I see Mayor Jenkins, and then we have Pam. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
I did not get a proxy from the superintendent for Gina, so I'm not sure. I'm assuming the superintendent's going to join us.
Yeah, I've not heard anything else either myself. Oh, let me mute and reach out to him. Superintendent Parker is joining us as we speak. So,
all right.
I also will share that I've got Treasurer Michelle Ray. She's here at the office with me right now. So I just want to share that she's present as well.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
She says hello.
Joe Pat, I'm on here as well.
All right. Superintendent Parker, with that said, we will call the roll, and I will call our meeting to order. This is the Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission special called meeting. We're doing this via Zoom. It's Thursday, February 26th. And Mayor Jenkins, good morning. Let the record reflect he is present. And then good morning to Superintendent Parker. Good morning, Billy. Let the record reflect his presence. And then myself, Joe Pat Covington. We have a quorum and can conduct business. With that said, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, approval of minutes from the last meeting, 1/28/26. Any questions or comments related to those minutes as presented?
No, sir. I'll make a motion to approve
Well,
those minutes.
We did identify a typo. I've highlighted it there in yellow. It was mistakenly put as 2025 and 2026. So we will amend that to correct it.
No, very good. I'm glad y'all caught that. Billy, will you amend your motion to accept
Sure.
as amended?
Yes, sir. Accept as amended.
Second.
We have a second from Mayor Jenkins. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That will lead us on down to update from Phil and Scott, legislative session items of interest for this 2026 long session.
Morning, everyone. We're kind of monitoring at least 6 or 7 different bills that may either impact directly the Revenue Commission or potentially impact your local institutions. And I'll run through these, and Scott may jump in with some of his unique perspective as he's been in Frankfurt and been in contact with some other interested parties. Senate Bill 54 would purport to allow local governments to regulate short-term rentals and create a registry of those, prohibit where or restrict where they can operate. On the contrary, Senate Bill 112 would do exactly the opposite as I see it, and would prohibit local governments from doing those kinds of things. Both those bills are still in the initial committee stage with the same committee, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It's hard to see that both of those making it out of committee for further consideration since they are essentially diametrically opposed. Senate Bill 237 was just filed this week, and it essentially replaces the language of a House bill that was filed last month and withdrawn, and it's drawn a lot of attention from COLA. This bill would require 100% of the wages of an employee who is associated with a corporate office to be apportioned to the local government where that corporate office is located. As you might understand, this really kind of turns the principles of occupational tax on its head. This has not yet been assigned to a committee for review, but it certainly is going to get a lot of attention, we believe. House Bill 518, which we may have discussed with you before, would require the Secretary of State to develop forms for occupational tax returns. As some people refer to it, this is sort of like Central Collections Light. It was proposed by some of those same people. This would require standardized forms to be developed later this year and reported to the Committee on Local Government later in November. And it's also going to require standardized links to be reported to the Secretary of State for filing of these forms. The key points of this, I believe, and I'll let Scott jump in here if I overlook something. This legislation would not require the development or adoption of new forms if the Secretary of State determines that an existing form already satisfies the requirements of this legislation. If a local jurisdiction can opt out of this, if it already has an online filing and payment system in place as of January of 2025. So obviously we meet that requirement. This bill passed the House yesterday 91-3, and it's been moved on to the Senate for further consideration.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
The House Bill 518, it's the same people, as Phil said, that proposed House Bill 253 last year, which was centralized collection. And they've been very vocal this year about 518, that it is not centralized collection. They realized that that was probably not a good idea. They've said, you know, what we've moved on to is simplification here. So there's some aspects of this we're unclear of. You know, that it designates that the Secretary of State will promulgate the new forms, the standardized forms. Well, we created standardized forms that were launched in 2017. And ironically, they've been on the Secretary of State site since 2017. So we're not clear how much Secretary Adams may or may not know about that or what his involvement would be. But I mean, they're on his own website. So, and ours are actually more, that we created years ago are more standardized in the sense that the forms we created, you could, whether you're a city that has gross receipts or net profits, you could file them on the same form. So we accommodated for that in order to try to have as few forms as possible. What this bill does is kind of tends to reverse that. They want a separate net profit and gross receipt form, which is kind of unnecessary since we've already consolidated and those forms and make it in the interest of making it simpler for the businesses and the tax preparers and the CPAs to do this. So with most of these bills we're going to talk about, there's a lot more questions at this point than answers. Going back to 495, which was withdrawn, and we're hearing maybe reposition. One of the main concerns we had about that was the language about where a company is headquartered or located, and we talked about that a lot at KLC yesterday. So because you have the issue, it's primarily Northern Kentucky and Frankfort where they have these issues of large numbers of people working remotely. And a lot of the other Northern Kentucky cities could potentially lose a lot of revenue because the people are working from home, and home is Fort Mitchell or Fort Wright or Crestview Hills. But the language about, where the corporate office is, so essentially, if the corporate office is in Covington, Covington believes that they should get that revenue, not where the work is actually performed. That's kind of in one sentence what the crux of it is. But what concerns me is the language about what they define as headquarters and where they're anchored and things of that nature. Because I mean, let's face it, right here, Toyota, their headquarters is in Japan. In Louisville, there's 2 Ford assembly plants. Well, Ford is headquartered in Detroit. So there's some very frightening implications with that. And of course, that could be worked out in the language before the final bill gets through. And there's sometimes cleanup bills, but that's something that really causes us a lot of concern, which could have significant impacts to our communities. And I'll go back to Louisville. Their largest employer is UPS. UPS's headquarters are in Atlanta. So it brings up a lot of very complicated issues. Also, there's some constitutionality and due process issues associated with this that we've identified. As Phil said, historically, occupational tax is based on where the work is performed. It's not an income tax. It's a privilege tax based on where business activity happens. So this kind of turns all that on its head. So there's also fear of potential very, very costly legal challenges that could come out of this if it were to pass. So that's these 2 bills that Phil talked about, 495, which is now Senate Bill 237 plus House Bill 518 are 2 we're keeping a very close eye on.
Well, let's continue to monitor, and if any of those get any legs that you all see, I'd be more than happy to try to reach out to our leadership in Frankfort, and then also coordinate with Keiko as well. So appreciate the update and always keeping us abreast of things that could impact the Revenue Commission and our elected bodies that we represent. So any comment from Billy or Mayor Jenkins?
Yes, matter of fact, I was in Frankfurt yesterday and had a conversation with Senator Nunn, Representative Grosso, and also Representative Hampton on those very issues. We talked about that, and standardized and all that. And I said, we have a system that's working, so we don't need to be actually, needs to change what we're doing. But he thinks that there may be an opportunity for them to actually opt in if you want to do that. If you have something that's already working, you may not have to do that. I think that's what we have, if I'm not mistaken, right, Scott, that we have
Yes.
something that's always working. So
Yes,
we
sir,
don't
that's
need to
correct.
opt in to do something like, with them. So they're aware of that. And something else we brought up, and I don't know, since it's a special call meeting, I don't know if this will be something I need to talk more in general discussion, but we talked about the alcohol, that, and also the occupational tax, and also the one with the rental property and all that. So they are aware, and we told them that we need, as local government, needs to decide what's best for our cities, and we made that point strong with them yesterday. That I think Frankfurt has enough to deal with in actually sticking their hands in what we try to do here, because we're the ones that knows what our people want, and we're the ones that actually are boots on the ground and add in those services that our citizens need. So there you go.
I'll just and I would simply add that it seems interesting that local control is thrown up so frequently as something that is supposedly advocated for, but then frequently I see situations where when local control doesn't align with what someone wants, all of a sudden we're looking to take away local control. So I really hope, again, I would almost, I'd almost say, why don't you come and take a look at what we've got going on if people need a model.
Yep.
Well, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all those comments. And Judge, I'll just add, a couple of weeks ago, you and I were both at the Capitol for County Day. So I do want to add that KCO and KLC are working very closely together on these. In fact, I met Representative Dietz from Northern Kentucky, who represents part of Covington. She's the one that filed the initial bill, and KCO and KLC and some of our COLA folks went up, and she was very generous with her time. We met with her in her office. And so the actual sponsor of the bill has heard our concerns about this. So, it is a united effort at this point to try to work through some of these. And if there's any room for negotiation at the language, in some of these existing bills, we'll always work with the representatives and senators on that as well.
Very good. I appreciate it, and appreciate you always, the work you do in the background to advocate for the Revenue Commission in our community. So we'll move on here. Anything else there on legislative session? If not, we can move to 5.
Yeah, I think we had some more. The mayor touched on the one about the alcohol regulatory tax bill. Is that on your list too?
Yes, that's House Bill 612, and it talks about imposing a 4% statewide average, which would later be reduced. As I understand, that can be problematic for many communities because they may already be charging more than that. That's been assigned to the Licensing, Occupations, and Administrative Regulations Committee as of February the 18th. It's still there. Just very briefly, House Bill 645 raises once again this idea of the Kentucky Tax Tribunal. The identical bill was filed last year, which would purportedly create a single forum for all tax-related litigation to be handled by this group. That was assigned to Appropriations and Revenue on February 23rd. We're going to continue to monitor that. And finally, House Bill 66, which we only recently became aware of, that relates to video teleconference public meetings, which, as you know, may affect us. I'm still going to continue to monitor that and its potential effects on what we do. But my initial thought is it appears to state that routine matters can be handled by video teleconferencing, but non-routine matters may require at least a quorum in person for those matters to be handled. And again, we're going to continue to monitor that and any effects on how we do business here with you.
And that also the regulatory, alcohol regulatory bill, we mentioned that to our state representative yesterday. And the fact that the problem with that is it hits us pretty hard because we have a 7 and a 5%. So you're talking taking revenue back to, I think down to 3, I think in a period of a time. So for us, we use that money for for our police, as well as our some of the salary for our city clerk, because that's the administrator of that. So it would hit us pretty hard to do that, and we made that known to our state representatives that they really need to look at that. And of course, I know that people like Jefferson County and Louisville loves this because they don't charge us anyway, so it benefits them, but it hurts us.
Yes, and you're not alone there, man. There's other cities that are in the state. There was one city that's 8%, and they, like you, it goes to law enforcement, it goes to addiction recovery efforts and things of that nature. So it's, and you're right. What they're doing is, Louisville and Lexington and Bowling Green, the larger cities, due to population, are prohibited from imposing this. So they could potentially pick up millions, which it's great. They should have that opportunity, would be my opinion. but you don't then take away from the middle and smaller size cities, to make that happen. So that I think that's very accurately stated, Mayor. And Phil, I think that's all the bills
Yes, that's it.
All right. Thank you all. Go to that number 5, PIA request.
penalty and interest abatement. So we have 3 this month, 1 approval and 2 denials. The first one, the taxpayer is requesting abatement of $89.01 in late filing penalties and interest for net profit tax years 23 and 24. The taxpayer's written narrative states the reason for the delinquency is that they became extremely ill. They were diagnosed with 2 concurrent life-threatening illnesses and had to close their business ultimately. So all tax liability has been paid to the Revenue Commission. So per our policy, this does establish reasonable cause. And our recommendation to the commission is to approve this abatement request.
I make a motion to approve the
Okay.
request.
We have a motion for this first one.
Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
Okay, I was speaking a minute ago and you couldn't. I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then the second one, taxpayer B.
Taxpayer B. So this is a $75 penalty on net profit request for tax year 23. As you can see, that's a 25-25-25 split between the city, county, and school board. Taxpayer indicates in their written narrative that the return may have been lost in the mail, but provided no documentation to substantiate that claim. Per Revenue Commission policy, nothing provided by the taxpayer demonstrates reasonable cause for penalty and interest abatement. It's our recommendation to deny this request for $75. Taxpayer will be informed that they're welcome to submit additional relevant information. We'll be happy to reconsider. And this does happen sometimes. If they can go back and find their receipts where they did, in fact, file it in a timely manner, then we can revisit this one. But for now, this will be a denial.
Before anybody makes a motion, I do appreciate you all always communicating, like if there's additional information that the taxpayer can submit, that you all are always open to receiving that. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, we want to give the taxpayer every opportunity to get some relief if it's at all possible.
Any questions or comments in related to that recommendation?
I make a motion to request of denying this particular request.
Yes, sir.
And I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That will lead us, that takes care of number 5, and that'll lead us to number 6.
That's taxpayer. Yeah, taxpayer C. This will also be a denial. This is net profit tax penalties and interest for years 2020 to 2024, totaling $1,221.26. The taxpayer's written narrative was submitted in the category of unavoidable absence, but the taxpayer makes no mention of an unavoidable absence in their submission. The taxpayer cites numerous serious deaths and illnesses in their circle of family and friends from 2020 to 2026, but they failed to provide any details as to how those illnesses and deaths impacted the business from 2020 to 2024, which was open the whole time and is still open. The business is open 7 days a week and does has employees as reflected in their payroll withholding returns, which are filed by a third party. But the 2020 to 2024 net profit tax returns submitted show that the business activity was ongoing in all years, and net profits were reported in all years. So the taxpayer has been late on filing and paying all net profit tax returns since the business opened in late 2019. Another confusing part of it is a person that submitted the penalty and interest abatement request is not the single member of this LLC that's noted on our account. So the bottom line is that we have a lot more questions than we do answers. So at this time, we're going to deny this request, but make a more specific request of them. Judge, you mentioned the last one, how we always give them an opportunity if there's more information. Please provide that. We're going to ask for some additional specific information that may turn the tide on this. They maybe have just left something out, but we're going to deny it for now. But when we send the denial letter out, we're going to suggest that they provide additional information that may answer some of our questions. It's kind of an unusual case.
I will make a motion to accept the recommendation with um, request request for additional information if the taxpayer so desires to submit.
Yeah.
So that's a motion on the floor.
I'll second that.
Second, any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. So now I do believe we're done with number 5.
Yes.
And that'll lead us to the audit update. Any questions or comments? Or I'm sorry, I'll turn it over to Scott before we get into questions or comments.
Really quickly, I apologize. I'm a little bit out of order here, though. But y'all couldn't hear me. Phil, what was the number on that bill pertaining to telecommunicated meetings?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Video teleconference meetings, that was House Bill 66.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, that passed on February 11th and has been sent to the Senate.
Okay, so the audit, this is just a verbal update on our audit. The draft audit was sent to the city, county, and school board. Gina has a copy. Michelle has a copy, and Stacy has a copy as well. I know Stacy has forwarded it to her auditors. Gina has come back with some questions from your auditor, superintendent, and I think we've resolved those. She also had a follow-up phone call with her. So once we get any of these external auditor questions answered, then we can give the thumbs up for the final audit to come, and then we'll present that at a later meeting as we normally do every year when the audit closes out. And just a reminder, it was a clean audit, 0 findings for us. Again this year. So we're just working through some of the details and make sure all your individual external auditors have their questions answered.
Any questions in regards to that? That's great. No findings and clean. That's what we all want to hear. Appreciate the professionalism and details. Any other questions? If not, we'll lead into general discussion.
All right, so there were no new projects for Scott County in January of 2026 from the Cabinet for Economic Development. We continue to make the KJRA payments. We're coming up on the 10-month cap where they reach the cap, and we will have the 2-month period. I think that's March or April. So that's coming up shortly. Individual compliance efforts for January. Well, let's see here. There we go. It was $51,318.97. You can see there Phil had 13,000 delinquent accounts he was able to collect on. 87% of that's net profit. Tammy was $9,600. 96% of that was net profit. Actually, they're all net profit this month. Michelle Disney, $12,129, and Denny Rice, $16,437. And just some context on January, you know, we had all the bad weather, and some, even when we were able to reopen the office, some folks couldn't make it in because they couldn't get out of their driveway. And we've had people, two people on jury duty at one time, and we've had some FMLA usage, and we also had a bereavement leave that was a week long. So we had a lot of time out of the office. So this is a pretty decent effort considering we've had quite a bit of disruption in the month of January. So not our biggest month, but a respectable number given what we had going on in January.
I'm glad. I hope everybody's faring well, and we all hope for good weather and let's just get to March, and we're not that far from spring.
Absolutely.
I think, Scott, the most I think you have just shared with the group in town that would probably be the most likely to commiserate with you around the weather in January.
Yeah. That's the man up at 3 a.m. driving down Sharp Pike, looking at roads. So
yes,
we
yes,
know that reality.
All right. So the electronic payment summary. So a rather robust electronic payment month, January 26th, $95,000. You can see 27% of that was net profit, 72% was payroll withholding. And as is usually the case, over 90%, in the case of January, 92% of all those collections were e-checks, and the other 8% are credit and debit card transactions. So again, a robust month, and I think we're already at $1.5 million on our roll up here. So, 7 months into this fiscal year, I think we're going to beat last year in terms of our total electronic collection. So a lot of people continue to use the electronic payment methods, which is encouraging. Any questions on that?
Nope. Appreciate that information.
All right, so we'll get on to the monthly tax collections below in January. We knew this day would come where we're competing with a very big number from last year that did not materialize this year. And we are down for the month of January, $3.4 million or 55%. And you can see the collections for the city down 1.4, county 1.3, and school board 729,000. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here to our current. And the reason for this is you'll recall last year, and I sent you all the 25 as well. So this is last year's quarterly stat. So in this month, January of last year, we were $4.9 million over the prior year. And that's because we got two payments here in January. One was an amended net profit return, which was $3.6 million. That's where the IRS audited the taxpayer, and then they had to come back and subsequently file amended returns with us. Then we also had another net profit deposit from one of our companies that was $3.9 million. So that really spiked it that month last year. And of course, that's going to be reflected this year. So we collected $4.5 million this month this year, but it was over 8 million last year because of that. So that put us at 3.4 million down when you're competing with those kind of, anomalous payments on net profits that come in. So the city's piece of that for the month of January is down 1.4 in collections, county down 1.3, and again, the school board down 729, as I mentioned before. So where that leaves us now is 2.2 million down for this fiscal year because of this large payment last year. That's put the city's collections down 805,000 from where they were at this time last year. The county 712, and the school board at 691 down. I've also plugged in here at the bottom your distributions. So at this point, your distributions are running 663,000 below where they were last year at this time for the city. 600,000 even roughly for the county, and 732,000 for the school board. Now that seems kind of out of whack for the school board. So John looked into that, and we think we've got some payroll withholding issues with some of the payroll companies. John, you want to talk about that? Are you on mute, John? It looks like you're frozen, John.
Yeah, I lost everything there for a second. Sorry.
It's okay.
All right. I did not catch anything you said there, Scott. I apologize.
Well, I was just mentioning, if you look at where we are, for example, on this last line here with the distribution payments, the city's so far for this fiscal year is running about 663,000 below where we were at this time last year. The county 600, and the school board 732. That's higher than either one of the county or the city. So we did some digging into that to try to figure out what it was. And John, you've got some information on that.
Yes. So was able to go back and take a look. There is one of the larger net profit accounts that made a substantial estimated payment in 24 for school. And they've been working off the credit for that, whereas city and county, they continue to pay. So it looks like there was a calculation error on their end. But the majority of this is in with the withholding, where I was able to identify several of our larger employers that are trending upwards for city and county, and either flat or actually declining in what they're reporting for the school. So went ahead and prioritized them for reconciliations. We're going to go digging into their accounts specifically and see if we can't track down if there's any specific employees they're not properly withholding on and get them back in line.
Yeah. So it looks like we may be getting correct collections for the city and county, but the school board does not seem out of whack, and we'll catch that in a reconciliation and try to get that squared away and collected in future reports.
Well, and I appreciate your all's thought, time, and consideration, and recognizing that and trying to figure it out and make it make sense.
So more to come on that once we get into the reconciliations and figure out what's going on. And this is not an uncommon thing. The amount is kind of large. That's why it caught my attention when I was looking at it. But sometimes the payroll companies, they switch payroll companies and they don't get things quite right. So, but will ultimately get it correct and where it needs to be.
I have complete confidence of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Well.
We appreciate your confidence. Any other questions on the quarterly stats? I know we've not seen a big down month like that ever. So, but like I said, we talked about this in the past. We knew this day was coming. When you get these big, and especially when it's a huge IRS audit on a big company, it can be in the millions of dollars sometimes. The impact to us locally once they file the amended return. So,
definitely an outlier, and I value your feedback, but I do not see this as some trend that we need to keep an eye on. I think it's a one-time issue that impacted us, and we're always keeping an eye on all of this, but it doesn't seem like a trend.
You're absolutely correct. Outlier is exactly the right word, Judge. That's exactly what we're dealing with. But because we keep a close eye on this and report to you every single month on this, it doesn't come as a surprise out of the middle of nowhere. So,
no, appreciate that, and I'm anxious to see how February lands with today and tomorrow being the final 2 days of collections, and then we'll see. We'll have preliminary numbers on February pretty soon, so that will be something I'll be looking for.
okay. Yes, sir. All right. So that takes the monthly and the quarterly stats. We've started a new calendar year on tracking the new accounts. We had 69 new for the month of January and 43 closed. So that's exactly 20 more than we opened last year at this time. So off on a good start there. But we've closed 23 more than we had closed this month last year. So we had some additional account closings there. So we'll keep an eye on that. And of course, the averages are the same because it's the first month, but we'll continue to track that. Again, we wound up last year 25, another year over 1,000 and actually over 1,100 new accounts set up. So we're currently sitting at 11,084 open active accounts here at the Revenue Commission. Any questions on the account information?
No questions from me. Any other questions?
No. Here.
Anything else in general discussion, Scott?
No, unless you all have something, that's all we have.
Nope. That leads us to next meeting, just confirming March 25th, 2026 at 10 a.m. I've got that on my calendar, and I don't, if anyone else has any conflicts, I do not have a conflict with that, so we'll march forward with that. If then, would there be a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, and we appreciate everybody's time. Y'all be safe, and we'll meet back here in March. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate your
Yes, we
support.
are.
Yes, sir.
Thank you to Scott and your team for everything that you do for us. Appreciate you.